Murders that will live on in infamy, a twisted love story that actually happened, and an entire alternate screenplay? Here's what the ending of Killers of the Flower Moon really means. Killers of the Flower Moon opens with the Osage people in Oklahoma striking oil. By the 1920s, the discovery had turned them into the wealthiest group of people in the world, except that racist laws require white guardians to handle their wealth. Many Osage are being murdered, and the police are doing nothing to solve the cases. William King Hale is one white man using this situation for his own benefit, and ropes his war veteran nephew Ernest Buckhart into an elaborate criminal scheme, marry into an Osage family, then kill the members off one by one until the oil money is all theirs. Ernest actually falls in love with his new wife, Molly, but still partakes in the violence against her family due to a combination of greed and his uncle's manipulations.
I do love that money, sir.
Molly is diabetic and gets prescribed the new, rare, and extremely expensive synthetic insulin. Distrusting the doctors, she has her husband perform the shots for her. Unbeknownst to her, Ernest is following the doctor's orders to mix the insulin with the poison to slow her down, gradually sickening her. Afraid she's going to die, Molly uses what little strength she has left to travel to Washington, D.C., to plead to President Calvin Coolidge for an investigation into the unsolved murders. It works. Agents from the Bureau of Investigation led by Tom White come in and arrest Ernest. Hale casually turns himself in, confident he'll be ruled innocent. In the final act of Killers of the Flower Moon, Ernest wavers back and forth on whether to testify against Hale. Ernest makes confessions only to take them back and claim he was forced to by the BOI. He shows up in court without realizing he and his uncle have the same lawyer, W.S. Hamilton, who works further to scare him off from testifying. In jail, Ernest learns his youngest daughter has died of whooping cough. But surprisingly, Molly is still alive and has gotten help recovering from the poisoning. Ernest has an emotional reunion with his wife. The trials continue to unearth evidence of the conspiracy despite Hale's best efforts to suppress it, and Ernest ultimately testifies and pleads guilty to killing Rita and Bill Smith by blowing up their house. But he won't confess to everything. In his last scene, he lies to Molly, still saying the shots he gave her were just regular insulin. The film continues into an epilogue of sorts, where the story of the Osage murders is presented via a live performance of a true crime radio play. The energetic, fast-paced deliveries and wacky sound effects make it easy to miss all the details, but this epilogue describes what happened in the aftermath of the story. We hear how Ernest and Hale both ended up free on parole despite their life sentences, and in a cameo from director Martin Scorsese himself, how Molly's obituary made no mention of the murders. The final shot of the film shows a massive Osage drum and dancing circle from overhead. Like Scorsese's past crime films, Killers of the Flower Moon is about the all-consuming power of greed in the American capitalist system. Here, this theme also plays into the reckoning with the mass genocide of indigenous people. Ernest makes for a particularly complicated protagonist because on the one hand, he seems to genuinely love his wife, but on the other, he's both so greedy and so easily manipulated that his love ultimately means nothing. More than anything, Ernest is a weak man, and the way he's pulled back and forth over the course of the trial in the film's final act serves to emphasize that weakness.
I just love money. I love it as much as I love my wife.
The scene in which Hamilton brings Ernest to a meeting with the oil company execs to put the fear of God into him evokes Ned Beatty's scene in Network, another film about the forces of the market doing everything to suppress dissent. You might watch the final act of Killers of the Flower Moon hoping for Ernest to find the strength to stand up to Hale and acknowledge his crimes, but his confession offers little catharsis. Ernest's final interactions with Molly only serve to emphasize his dishonesty and cowardice. Molly never really trusted him, identifying him as a coyote from the beginning, but nonetheless chose to spend her life with him. By the end of the film, she fully sees through his charming facade, wanting nothing more to do with him. On the most basic level, presenting the final facts of the story in the form of a live radio show offers a more entertaining alternative to the standard practice of closing historical films with informational title cards. The choice to present this information so entertainingly, however, comes with its own layers of commentary on the nature of the true crime genre as a whole, and on Scorsese's own responsibilities with Killers of the Flower Moon in particular. For one thing, there's the question of entertainment as a distraction. After over 3 hours of methodically paced storytelling, suddenly getting bombarded with a presentation so fast and so silly makes it harder to take in the sadness of the story being told. This radio show is specifically stated to be associated with FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, which raises questions about the propagandistic use of such stories. The images of the theater audience recall how Scorsese ended The Wolf of Wall Street, forcing the viewer to reflect on their own attraction to such stories in the first place. Not letting himself off the hook either, Scorsese appears on stage as part of the radio show. But when he's talking about Molly's divorce, remarriage, and death, the bells and whistles fade away. He wants us to take this in. That's what Killers of the Flower Moon is trying to accomplish, to offer serious reflection on tragedy within the apparatus of mass entertainment. Whereas Ernest is a sort of villain who lacks any serious sense of right or wrong, Hale is the kind who's convinced himself he's in the right, which is what makes him so scary. He's convinced the Osage Nation he's their ally, and he can talk at length about the virtues of their culture. Yet he still wants to take everything from them because he views their fall as a historic inevitability.
The Osage, they're gonna go. Their time is over.
It's an even more extreme parallel to Ernest professing love for the same woman he's slowly poisoning. Speaking to Ernest in jail, Hale delivers a chilling monologue affirming his confidence that history will vindicate him, because all the anger people hold towards him now will end up forgotten. To some degree, this confidence was scarily well-founded. He and the other convicted killers were eventually let free, while other killers weren't caught or convicted at all, and the broader culture generally forgot about this story for a long time. Yet even if white America forgot, the Osage Nation did not forget. When Hale was let out of prison, his release was met with protests, and though it's taken far too long, the existence of Killers of the Flower Moon as both a book and a movie is also a rejoinder to Hale's view of history. What might have once been forgotten is now being remembered on a large scale. As with the radio epilogue, the closing shot of Killers of the Flower Moon seems to serve two primary purposes, one stylistic and one thematic. The stylistic purpose of the final shot is the sheer visual splendor of it all. With a reported budget of $200 million, this production had plenty of resources for stunning scenes with massive crowds and fancy camera work. But Scorsese restrains those more grandiose instincts for much of the film in favor of a more intimate focus on character drama. The ending offers a place where such a spectacle fits comfortably. Thematically, the final shot returns the central focus of the film to the Osage people. Trying to navigate the issue of perspective was one of the challenges of making the film. Most of the significant Native American characters are killed midway through the film, and Molly, the main exception to this rule and one of the most important characters, still has to spend a large chunk of the film bedridden, while the white male exploiters take center stage in the drama. Presenting the Osage perspective on this tragedy, however, was one of Scorsese's priorities in telling this story. The movie opens from their perspective, and after the radio drama segment entirely about white America's viewpoint, the closing shot returns the movie to them. The start of the credits solidifies this, with the film's title displayed in the Osage language before it is shown in English. Scorsese's thoughtful direction continues even beyond the end of the narrative into the credits themselves. Pay attention to the sounds in the background. They're the sounds of nature that Molly teaches Ernest to listen to at the start of their courtship. When Sight and Sound pointed this out in an interview with Scorsese, he responded, "The music comes from there, it always did. That's how music originated, from imitating animals and the sounds of insects. And so you get the goat singers, you get the ancient world, the tragedy again from that. And that's for us to go back to and to find comfort in, I think." Well before the release of Killers of the Flower Moon, Osage Nation Principal Chief Joffrey Standing Bear, who advised Scorsese on the film's cultural depictions, discussed the filming of the film's closing shot. He revealed that it was a relatively late addition, telling Tulsa World that, "I heard that Mr. Scorsese and the producers are going to come back and try to get a better ending by showing everyone who was an extra in a social dance where everyone's having a good time." Speaking to Vogue during the movie's premiere at the Cannes Film Festival, Gladstone made sure to inform people of one of her favorite details in the true story that wasn't included in the film. "It's not in this film, but it's important to me that people know that Molly, when she divorced Ernest, she didn't just cut and run. She went back and got the money from him that he'd embezzled from her." In an interview magazine talk with director Kelly Reichardt, Gladstone described using quotes from those later court cases to base a performance of the film's ending scenes on, saying, "I don't want harm to befall my husband, but I want the truth to come out for what it is." Closer to release, Scorsese had talked more about aspects of the film's final acts in interviews. He told The New Yorker that the film's ending was harder to write than the beginning, explaining, "The first 2 hours we were moving along. The second 2 hours, boy, is this getting a little long in the tooth, as they say. The Killers of the Flower Moon movie captures much of the book's content, but is completely different in terms of structure. The book is divided into 3 major sections, or chronicles. The first chronicle, The Marked Woman, is centered around Molly and her account of the crimes against her family. The second, The Evidence Man, follows Tom White and the BOI as they uncover Hale's big conspiracy. Finally, the reporter shifts the focus to the book's author, David Gran, as he personally investigates the case further and uncovers the extent to which the BOI overall failed to bring about justice.
When this money started coming, we should have known it came with something else, because it's a white man's money.
Even if Scorsese's film adaptation has stuck closer to the structure of the book, there was almost no way the book's ending could be directly adapted. To even attempt that, the film would either have to shift to a documentary format, or there would need to be a big meta-framing device involved. Scorsese gets a bit meta with the radio show epilogue, but that's different from making the whole third act about a writer living nearly a century later. As far as we know, Killers of the Flower Moon didn't have an alternate ending filmed. There is, however, an entire alternate screenplay. Eric Roth's original draft was closer to the mystery structure of the book, as well as to more traditional westerns, with Tom White as the primary viewpoint character. As Roth and Scorsese worked on developing the script, they realized they had to completely start over for multiple reasons. Putting the focus on the BOI made it too much of a white savior story. And with Hale so obviously a villain with Robert De Niro in the role, the BOI-centric version failed as a compelling mystery. DiCaprio, who was originally going to play White, reportedly questioned Scorsese. Where's the heart in this movie? Scorsese determined that the heart was in the twisted romance between Ernest and Molly, a topic which only became more interesting to him while doing research and speaking with members of the Osage who claimed the love between the couple was real, despite how badly Ernest was hurting Molly. DiCaprio switched roles from White to Ernest, and the movie that exists today came into being.